So anytime I'm in some sort of a predicament or something is feeling resistant or hard or challenging in my life, I always go back to the anatomy of abundance framework. Welcome back to Living Room Wisdom. I am so excited to have you here, and I'm very excited for this incredibly edgy for me and raw season. This is a really raw season for me. And the reason why is because this is my first time doing solo episodes. So bear with me because I am also a human being. And no matter how successful you become and how people witness you and experience you, there's always that internal humanity and feelings of doubt and nervousness that others just don't see. And so I'm just being really raw and vulnerable and sharing that with you. So today, this episode is it's a love letter to you, but it's also just giving you a sneak peek into the pause that I've experienced over the last year. So many of you might know that in August 2004, I came down with a really bad case of TMJ. Now, earlier that year, I had launched my Anatomy of Abundance book, had an incredible run of writing with 7 incredible co-authors and experts, just pouring my heart and my soul into this project that I felt was so important for the expansion and the upliftment of everyone, just all of humanity. And we did the book launch. We became international bestsellers. We had a beautiful book launch party. We did podcast episodes. We had a beautiful writing retreat, just all the things. I was literally at the height of what other people would look at and call success. And overnight, just something hit and I came down with a really bad case of TMJ. So if you know anything about the spiritual and emotional significance of the jaw and TMJ, it really is about holding on to emotions, not speaking, really all of your truth, holding back, kind of hiding a bit. And it's also associated with denying self in a lot of ways. And so when this happened, I really didn't understand it because I'm so unapologetic. I'm so bold in so many ways and very good at self-care, very good at boundaries. And, I'm called the self-care queen by most, right? And so I'm like, how could this be? I've already gone through the season of healing through overgiving and overserving and performance and things of that nature. So while I was down for I think about 6 weeks, I was laid flat, couldn't hardly eat, barely could sleep. Noise, I had the worst migraine headache, so I wasn't able to really do a lot of talking or listening to loud music or anything like that. So I literally was laid flat for about 6 weeks with just me, my thoughts, silence, and myself. And it's really interesting how when you are paused completely, and all you have to do all day, every day, is to be with yourself, what comes up. So a lot of these things that I thought I had healed were really coming back full circle in a different way. Rather than it showing up in my personal relationships, rather than it showing up in my relationship with myself by, not taking care of myself, things of that nature, it was showing up in business. Because when I really thought about it, I've never not been in creation, production, and performance. And this was a hard truth for me because, I just feel so balanced and I work so hard and I'm so intentional about creating balance and a holistic sense of abundance in my life. So anytime I'm in some sort of a predicament or something is feeling resistant or hard or challenging in my life, I always go back to the Anatomy of Abundance framework. And I think a lot of you listening will really relate to this because there's times in our lives where we're bumping up against ourselves or where we feel like we're bumping against life somehow, right? No matter how hard we've planned and executed and surrounded ourselves by the right people and done all of the things necessary to create that success. And so going back to the anatomy of abundance framework, the first step of the framework is, who am I? And I know who the hell I am, and I live as who the hell I am. But I had to really get quiet and ask myself, who am I now? What I realized is that during that time that the TMJ hit, I was in the process of sending my second to youngest child to college. I was preparing for my youngest child, the youngest of 5 children, to be home alone as an only child for the first time. And that doesn't sound like a lot, but it actually is, because there's a big, huge shift from having a lot of kids in a household and being so focused on catering to each of those children's needs while also running a business, taking care of your partner and taking care of yourself, to then shifting to that one child in the home and wondering, like, how am I going to meet their needs and all of the things. Okay. So it's like, who am I in this season? Not to mention that it also was bringing me closer to empty nesterhood, right? So it's this big moment where I'm this close to tasting empty nesterhood, complete like freedom in a sense, because we're never really completely free when we're parents, but you know what I mean. So there was just this tension, is what I like to call it, this tension between who I was and who I'm becoming, right? And so there was a breakdown of sorts. And what I've learned through decades of living and serving other women is that anytime we have a breakdown, it's really a breakthrough in the process and a recreation of self. So step 1 was, who am I? Who am I now? And so I had to do some self-reflection. Step 2 is identify. So what are the areas in my life right now, the ways I've been living my life that worked in the past, but that are not going to work moving forward? One of them is, because I'm so close to empty nesterhood and because I was just feeling so much pressure all of these years having to take care of everyone in my household, there was a sense of relief that I actually wasn't quite sure what to do with. And so my question to myself was, how can I create my empty nester reality, that empty nester feeling now? What can I release? Who can I release? And how can I create a reality that allows me to be filled with joy and lightness and peace and harmony every single day? So that was the second question. The third question relates to step 3 of the framework, which is sacred self-care. So where have I not been taking care of myself? One of the areas I identified was diet. I hadn't been really nourishing myself properly in my diet. The other area was physical fitness. I hadn't prioritized the walking, the taking care of myself in a physical way, because I'm always taking care of everybody else and working within those schedules and those confines. So then I said, okay, so in this next season of my life, this interim empty nesterhood, if you will, who am I? I am the bold, new, mature, freer version of Patrina than I've been. I'm also someone who is really kind of burnt out from always serving and holding space for everyone else. What I realized is that as much as I love to uplift and spotlight and serve other women, I was actually burnt out. I was tired. And I also realized while I was down that, in a sense, that serving and that spotlighting other people and always uplifting others and putting myself last was a way of hiding. So that's where the discomfort about doing these solo episodes come in, because I'm so used to having someone sitting in the chair next to me that I'm sharing and uplifting and celebrating and spotlighting for others, that it allows me to kind of take a last seat. And I thought I had healed through that as a child, right? Always putting myself last. And so this is my effort, kind of like my next iteration, my next season of showing up just me and sharing vulnerably my journey and lessons, and really for your good, but also for the elevation of myself and humanity as a whole. And so that's why this is edgy. So once I got to that point, I said, okay, so I'm going to declare this new version of myself. This new version of myself, There's a lot of things I'm just not going to do anymore, and see what that feels like. Because, like I said, I've never not been creating, I've never not been producing. And so I gave myself permission to take a pause, which is edgy within itself for those of us who are high achieving women, who juggle a lot of things. Maybe you're an entrepreneur, maybe you're in corporate America. But when you're someone that a lot of people look to and depend on on a regular basis, taking a pause seems really fucking radical. Okay. And so I gave myself permission to take a pause, but I really thought the pause would only be for like 2 or 3 months. So at the time, I was hosting luncheons, I was doing my podcast, I was hosting retreats 3, 4 times per year, my Pure Abundance retreat. Just doing so many things constantly to keep myself out there, the brand, but also to serve the women in the community. And I paused everything. Well, that 3 months turned into almost a year. During that year, where I was prioritizing myself, walking on the beach every day, feeding myself healthy food, actually cooking, which I hadn't done in a very long time, right? All of these things that I didn't really make time for previously because they didn't seem that important. So that was the declaration that I made, is that I would do that. Once I made that declaration, I had to move to step 5 of the Anatomy of Abundance framework, which is organize. When you abruptly, or what seems abrupt, when you abruptly change everything, the systems that you had created in the past no longer work. And so I had to figure out what systems of support, what things do I need to put in place for this new season. So with that, there were conversations with the family. There were financial decisions that needed to be made, reorganized in a sense, in order to support this new way of being. If I'm going to pull back, if I'm going to be less in production, if I'm going to be, simplifying my life in a sense, then there were certain things that would have to change. And one of those things that just had to change was the pressure I felt in regard to our living and our home. I was feeling very stagnant. I was feeling overwhelmed because our expenses at our house just kept rising and rising and rising. And my soul was yearning for more freedom. My soul was yearning for more variety. My soul was yearning to be by the beach. So as much as I would love to be, trotting all over the world at the moment, this is a situation where I still had my youngest at home. And so I had to figure out a way to get what I wanted and to create that joy and create that harmony, but in a way that didn't negatively affect my child. So we just moved over to Oceanside by the beach. And all of the things that I had in my head that said, well, you can't do this right now because of your kid. You can't do this right now because of your partner. You can't do that right now because of fill in the blank. I completely ignored that in some senses and figured out a way to move forward and do what felt in alignment for me. So that was where I moved to step 6 of the framework, move into action with accountability and support. So I'm not saying to go and completely change your entire life with no regard for everybody else. But if you're in a position where you're feeling a little bit chaotic, maybe misaligned, like you're not really fulfilled or moving in the right direction, it's typically a sign. It's your body telling you that something needs to shift. It might be a small shift. It might be a large shift. And again, I'm not telling you to go shake everything up. But if there is a decision that needs to be made, if there is a shift that needs to be made, give yourself permission to figure out what that shift is and take those steps forward. But just don't do it without regard for the people around you who will be affected by your decision. So when I say move into action with support and accountability, that means talking to the people closest to you. But that also means talking to your immediate community, right? Your peers, your mentors, so that you can get the right direction and support in making those moves forward. And so one thing I can say is that in the past, because I'm so acutely aware of when I'm in scarcity and when I'm making decisions from scarcity or fear or running away from something, And when I'm living and creating intentionally from a place of abundance, one of the things I can say is that this was the first decision in a long time, other than my business decisions, the first personal decision that I've made in a very long time from a place of abundance, not because I had to, not because my husband passed and became a widow of 4 children every day and had to recreate my life, not because I lost a job, not because my whatever the reason is. You know what I'm talking about. We have these experiences in our lives that kind of force us into a transition or force us into a recreation. But this was the first time in a long time that I chose recreation and that I initiated that from a place of abundance and from truly, truly, truly what I wanted to feel and experience in this season. So, with that said, I just wanted to share this with you. One, so you'd wonder, yeah, I'm sure some of you, and I know a lot of you were messaging me and wondering, like, hey, where are you? What are you doing? So, to just share with you what I've been experiencing over the last year, but in hopes that you'll be able to identify areas of your life where you've been feeling the same way. And if you're at that point of decision where you're deciding, like, are things going to stay the same or is it time to shift? To give yourself permission to make whatever shifts are necessary for you to live in your glory and not your story. So, with that said, I'm looking forward. I'm like super hot right now, and I just had to share that. But I'm really looking forward to more episodes like this, these solo episodes where I can just connect with you, share vulnerably my stories, but also stories of the women that I work with. Man, I got some good stuff in store for you. And just really connect in a different way. I'm in a different season. Many of you are in a different season, and I want us all to elevate and rise together. So, with that said, thank you so much, so much, so much. I love you. For those of you who have been following me for decades, you've seen my transitions, you've seen my recreations, and I want to thank you for being on this journey with me. And for those of you that are new to my community, new to me, welcome, welcome. And we're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to share a lot and transform our lives together. So I'll see you next time right here in the living room at Living Room Wisdom. If you're in a season of quiet chaos, recreation, or maybe you just feel like I'm not quite fulfilled, something needs to change, but I don't really know what, I want to encourage you to go download a free preview of our Anatomy of Abundance audiobook. If you haven't already purchased the hard copy on Amazon, then this could be a great introduction for you to the framework, but also just help you along the lines of identifying what your next steps are. So go ahead, claim it down at the link, and we'll see you then.